Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. Now, things are a little bit quieter in terms of the war in Syria, Israeli strikes, things going on in the Middle East a little bit, although if you look between the lines, you look past the headlines a little bit, there is still a lot going on. And in large part, that's due to the elections in Israel, where Netanyahu and the government in general doesn't want to do anything that may be seen as swaying a vote. They're focusing on getting reelected. They're focusing on the elections in April, and so that's what's going on right now. No great war or conflict is going on, or strikes is going on. But I think in the background, this is one of those ones where you can see in the background that indeed the military is leading up to something. They are working on something. This is an article from JPost, which I think is interesting. And you look at, and so this is a bunker buster. What's the headline? JPost.com. Israel unveils Rafael's new advanced bunker buster missile, and they're calling them rocks. So you can see that in the image. This is an air-to-surface missile that can be fired from a significant standoff range, reducing the exposure of the aircraft. So why bunker busters? Why are they developing bunker busters now? This seems to be a new thing. And they're not just developing weapons just because they feel like they need a bunker buster, a weapon in their arsenal. They're likely doing it based on specific intelligence, based on specific requirement that the government or the intelligence community in Israel and of the defense forces have put on them. They've come to the conclusion that, you know what, we need some bunker buster bombs for a particular reason. So the question you got to ask is, why? I mean, they can destroy factories, they can destroy buildings, even tunnels with conventional weapons. They don't need bunker buster bombs. They must realize that maybe there's some bunkers around there that may need to be hit. And I would put it out to you that possibly there is some relation to Isaiah 17, the destruction of Damascus. I suggest to you that really the only place that there could be bunkers in numbers would be around Damascus. And so the speculation has been that Saddam Hussein moved all his chemical weapons and missiles, etc., to Syria prior to, Desert Storm, prior to the invasion of Iraq and the ousting of Saddam Hussein. And so I think this is a possibility where maybe these weapons were actually moved to Damascus, and they're in bunkers in and around Damascus. And again, more speculation, but speculation nonetheless, is that the destruction of Damascus is due to weapons cache exploding. So the intent by the perpetrator, most believe it's Israel, in the destruction of Damascus is not to destroy Damascus, but to cut the head off the snake, if you will. And I think a very plausible scenario is that Israel goes in and strikes, not realizing, or maybe they do realize, but I would suggest initially not realizing that it would set off a series of events and explosions that would end up causing Damascus to be a heap of ruins, as the Bible actually prophesies, predicts. And so you look at bunker buster bombs, and could they be used in Damascus? And if they get into these bunkers that are in Damascus, are these bunkers where are all these high power missiles and bombs are kept, which maybe in part came over from Saddam Hussein and were transferred over during the ousting of Hussein. So it's speculation, but it's interesting to think about the situation there. It says, with tensions still high between Israel and Iran, a new air-to-surface long-range missile designed to destroy targets deep underground in heavily defended areas. Read that by air defense systems, because this is an air-to-surface, and you're able to deploy it from a large distance, a standoff distance. And so heavily defended areas, where are heavily defended areas in Syria, which is their main enemy right now? Well, that's Damascus. It says, deep underground in heavily defended areas has been developed by Israeli defense giant Raphael. So again, they're not creating this just because they feel like they need a new weapon. They're doing it because there's a specific request. It says, dubbed Rocks, the innovative missile is being presented for this week for the first time at the Aero India Air Show in Bangalore, India. Earlier in February, senior Revolutionary Guard commander threatened to raze Tel Aviv and Haifa to the ground if the United States attacked the Islamic Republic. And so the suggestion is that it could be used against Iran. It says, according to the statement, the new missile is equipped with a penetration or blast fragmentation warhead that is capable of destroying targets above the surface or deep underground in heavily surface-to-air defended areas. And that's exactly what I said. If there's air defense systems, that's exactly what's around Damascus. Now, you have to consider that maybe this is also speaking of a strike deep within Iran as well, and they're obviously known to have heavily guarded bunkers and air defensive systems, etc. I think the more immediate target is likely Damascus, and that's likely the purpose of these. It says it can be used against quality targets, whether stationary or mobile, even in areas whose enemies uses countermeasures against GPS systems. So who uses countermeasures against GPS systems, i.e. radar jamming? Well, we know that Russia has radar jamming vehicles in Syria, in and around Damascus. It says Rocks use its INS GPS for mid-course navigation while homing in on its targets, performed by its EO Seeker and advanced image processing algorithms, which ensures hitting targets with great precision, overcoming GPS jamming or denial, read the statement. So that's interesting. And also read this. Rocks will be launched from a significant standoff range far beyond the usual coverage of enemy air defense systems. So you got to look at that and say, you know what, Israel knows that they're having trouble going into Syria right now because of the air defense systems. They need a way to get around the S-300 air defense system. Now they can fire these missiles from a significant standoff range, it says, far beyond usual coverage of enemy air defense, far beyond the coverage of the S-300, the S-200 systems around Damascus. I submit to you that is the case, and this was produced specifically to provide Israel a way around the S-300 system without sending aircraft into the danger of the S-300. You know what? They probably could come up with technology to get around S-300, etc., radar jamming and otherwise, but the safest way to do it is just to send an unmanned vehicle in there, and so if it gets shot down, it gets shot down, no people die. But if it doesn't, and if they're able to evade because it can fly at a low altitude or something with an unmanned aerial vehicle like a missile, well, then they can get past the S-300 without having to risk lives. So that's interesting, and this is it's an interesting new weapon, and there's two specific reasons I see. I see Damascus being, the first or the secondary target. Maybe the first target at this point, and then the secondary would be if Israel ever wanted to do a strike against Iran, then they can certainly do that. So that's an interesting story, to say the least. Here's another one. This is from jpost.com. Netanyahu postpones trip to Moscow. New date to be set soon. No reason was given for the postponement, but an announcement given from the Prime Minister's office said it was agreed upon by both sides. I would suggest to you that there is a breakdown in the relationship, and that's what we expect to see prophetically. Russia moving away from its support of Israel in any manner, and really moving towards Iran, and we see that in the discussions, in the tone of the relationship between Netanyahu and Putin, and the government ministers as well, speaking on their behalf. And Russia is moving away. Russia is getting fed up with Israeli strikes. Russia is going to have hooks in their jaw, just as Ezekiel 38 says. It's going to bring them around, convince them that they need to go to war against Israel along with Iran and Turkey and allied nations. And maybe part of this bunker buster bomb is part of the thing, part of the reason why they get turned around and they say, okay, we need to go to war against Israel, because as Israel continues to evade the S-200, the S-300, their air defense systems that Russia has deployed in Damascus, in Syria, Russia's going to get frustrated, and they're going to come to a point where they say, we have to now simply go into Israel and take care of them, because our air defense systems aren't stopping them. And our air defense systems won't stop Israel. Israel has some of the best, if not the best, military technology in the world, and the brightest minds in the world. So yeah, with this bunker buster bomb, and if we see this used in action, this could very well be the tipping point where Putin says, all right, we can't defend against Israel with our air defense. Now we need to march in with soldiers on the ground and take care of them. So I think it's a very interesting situation here. One other article quickly here. This is from ynetnews.com. Palestinian president rejects money from Israel, tax money specifically. The PA will no longer accept tax revenues collected on behalf of Israel, following its decision to trim the sum over PA's financial support of militant families. So Israel's saying, you know what, the PA is paying militant families extra money if they martyr themselves. Israel's then decreasing the money because the PA is supporting the terrorism, basically. And so the PA is coming out and saying, we don't want to accept this. The cash-strapped Palestinian Authority, an interim self-government body set up following the 1993 Oslo Accords, has suffered a series of financial blows in the past year. Under the interim peace deals, Israel collects taxes in the West Bank. Why doesn't the PA do that? And in the Gaza Strip, and makes monthly payments to the PA, which it receives around $222 million each month. That's a lot of money. The PA, the finance ministry said Wednesday it collects 700 million shekels in Palestinian taxes and transfers around 600 million shekels of that to the Palestinian Authority after deducting payments for electricity, water and sewage that Israel is providing, and medical treatment services that Israel is providing to the people of Gaza. On Sunday, Israel said it would freeze 5% of that against stipends. The Palestinian Authority pays to families of Palestinians who commit terror attacks. So Israel's obviously not going to voluntarily give money to the PA if the PA just turns around and gives it to the people who are effectively trying to kill Israeli citizens, whether Jewish or Arab, for that matter, because both live in Israel. So he says, we reject the tax. We don't want it, Abbas told visiting U.S. congressman. Frankly, if we are left with only 20 or 30 million shekels, which is the sum paid to family of martyrs, then we will pay them to the families of martyrs. And I think this is going to put the stranglehold on the PA because they like their money. I don't think they're going to accept taking a lower paycheck in order to be able to pay for the terrorism. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what Abbas does in this case. Will he stand by his words and take less of a paycheck or no paycheck and not have heat and electricity in his house in order to be able to pay the terrorists and the martyr families, etc. here? It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I mean, Abbas is always trying to play a game, and they're going to play this to the international media as Israel withholding money that's due the PA. But I would say if the PA thinks it's their money, why aren't they collecting it? Why is Israel collecting it? And why don't they pay their own electricity bills? Why don't they pay their own water bills? Why don't they manage it? Why does Israel have to manage, Gaza's money, basically? And so, one of those things to think about. I'll put the links in the description. You can read the article, think about it, let me know what you think on that one. But that's kind of the update from Israel, where it stands right now. I think interesting prophetic designs as it relates to the bunker buster bomb and what that could mean for the region. And when you tie everything into end-time Bible prophecy and look at Ezekiel 38, you got to say, is this one of those things? Is this the last straw? I think the delivery and deployment and use of the bunker buster could be one of the last straws that turns Russia around, gets them to agree to an allied front and offensive against Israel, therefore fulfilling Ezekiel 38. Well, guys, I'll leave it there for today. I'll put the links in the description. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. If you haven't subscribed, and please support the channel. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.